The rain was coming down in sheets as I drove home, the wipers of my old Volvo struggling to keep up. I'm Alaric, a software developer in Minneapolis, and at 44 I thought I had it all figured out. A comfortable house in the suburbs, a steady job, and a wife, Bronte, who I had been with for 15 years. Or so I thought. The first crack in our picture-perfect life appeared subtly. Bronte, a vibrant artist who usually worked from home, had started taking on more commissions that required her to be out of the house. Initially, I was supportive. I knew she felt stifled lately, and I was happy she was finding new opportunities. But then the late nights started, the vague explanations, and the constant texting with a secretive smile on her face. One evening, I decided to surprise her by picking her up from her client's house. She had mentioned it was in the arts district, so I drove around until I found a building that seemed likely. I called her, but she didn't answer. Figuring she was busy, I parked and decided to wait. That's when I saw him. A man tall and lanky with a shock of unruly brown hair emerged from the building, laughing. And then Bronte followed, her hand lingering on his arm as they said goodbye. The familiarity, the intimacy in that simple touch hit me like a punch to the gut. It wasn't a client. It was something else entirely. I drove home in a daze, the rain mirroring the turmoil in my heart. When Bronte finally arrived, hours later, she was full of apologies about being held up. I watched her trying to reconcile the woman I loved with the stranger I had seen earlier. I couldn't bring myself to confront her. Not yet. I needed proof, something concrete to shatter the illusion I was desperately clinging to. So I started snooping. I know it's not my proudest moment, but I felt like I was drowning and I needed to grab onto something. I checked her phone when she was in the shower. Nothing, her email, clean. She was being careful, too careful. Then one Saturday morning, while Bronte was out grocery shopping, I decided to tackle her studio. It was a chaotic space filled with canvases, paints, and half-finished projects. I sifted through sketches, hoping to find some clue, some indication of what was happening. And then I found it. Tucked away in a drawer hidden beneath a pile of old papers was a small, leather-bound notebook. It was a journal, her journal. My hands trembled as I opened it. The first few pages were filled with mundane details about her day, but then the entries started to change. They became more personal, more intimate. And then I saw his name, Caspian. The journal was a chronicle of their affair. The stolen moments, the secret rendezvous, the lies she had told me. Each entry was a dagger twisting in my heart. She wrote about how Caspian made her feel alive, how he understood her in a way I never could. He sees the real me, Alaric just sees the wife he wants me to be, she had written. The words felt like a physical blow. I sank to the floor, the journal clutched in my hands, tears streaming down my face. 15 years. 15 years of my life, and it had all been a lie. Bronte came home a few hours later, her arms laden with grocery bags. I stood up, the journal still in my hand, and confronted her. The color drained from her face as she saw it. She didn't deny anything. She couldn't. The truth was there in her own handwriting, staring back at her. "How could you?" I asked, my voice hoarse with pain. "How could you do this to us, to me?" She started to cry, a pathetic display of crocodile tears. "I didn't mean for it to happen," she sobbed. "It just happened." "It just happened," I repeated, incredulous. "You wrote about it, Bronte. You planned it. You lied to me every single day." The next few weeks were a blur of anger, recriminations, and shattered dreams. We tried to talk, but the trust was gone, irrevocably broken. I couldn't look at her without seeing the image of her with Caspian, her hand on his arm, the laughter in her eyes. I moved into the guest room, and our house, once a sanctuary of love and laughter, became a cold, empty shell. I contacted a lawyer, and the divorce proceedings began. It was a messy, painful process filled with accusations and bitterness. Bronte tried to convince me to stay, to forgive her, but I couldn't. The wound was too deep. Meanwhile, I did some digging on Caspian. Turns out he was another artist, a struggling one who freelanced and taught classes at a community college. He was younger than Bronte, maybe by 5 years. He had this reputation of being a free spirit, always chasing after creative pursuits. I found his social media profiles, filled with pretentious art and even more pretentious captions. The more I learned about him, the more I despised him. He was a charlatan, a user who had preyed on my wife's vulnerabilities. I started to think about revenge. Not violent revenge, but something smarter, something that would hit them where it hurt. I knew Bronte's art career was important to her. It was her passion, her identity. And I knew that Caspian was desperate for recognition. So I hatched a plan. Using my tech skills, I created a fake art blog complete with glowing reviews and insightful commentary. I praised Bronte's work, highlighting her unique talent and vision. Then, I subtly criticized Caspian's art, calling it derivative and uninspired. I even created fake social media profiles to amplify the praise and criticism. It worked like a charm. Bronte lapped up the attention, basking in the glow of the positive reviews. Caspian, on the other hand, became increasingly insecure and resentful. I watched from the sidelines as their relationship started to crumble. The cracks that had started in my marriage were now appearing in theirs. They started arguing, their creative differences becoming a source of constant conflict. Bronte accused Caspian of being jealous of her success, while Caspian accused her of being a sellout. One evening, I received a call from Bronte. She was crying, her voice trembling with anger and hurt. Caspian left, she sobbed. He said I was too focused on my career, that I didn't have time for him anymore. I didn't say anything. I just listened as she poured out her heart, oblivious to the fact that I was the one who had orchestrated her downfall. When she finally hung up, I felt a strange sense of satisfaction. It wasn't happiness, not exactly, but it was a sense of justice. They had hurt me, and now they were hurting each other. The divorce was finalized a few months later. Bronte got the house, but I got the satisfaction of knowing that she was miserable. She had lost her husband, her lover, and her sense of self. Caspian, meanwhile, had faded into obscurity, his art career stalled, his reputation tarnished. I moved on with my life. I focused on my work, my hobbies, and my friends. I started dating again, cautiously, aware of the scars that Bronte had left behind. One day, a few years later, I was at a gallery opening when I saw her. Bronte. Older, more tired. Her hair was pulled back in a tight bun and her clothes were drab and shapeless. She was standing alone, nursing a glass of wine, her eyes filled with a sadness that mirrored my own. I hesitated, unsure of what to do. Should I approach her? Should I pretend I didn't see her? In the end, I decided to walk over. "Bronte," I said, my voice neutral. She looked up, startled. "Alaric," she said softly. "How are you?" "I'm fine," I replied. "And you?" She shrugged. "I'm okay." We stood there in silence for a moment, the weight of our shared history hanging between us. Then Bronte spoke. "I wanted to say I'm sorry," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I know it doesn't change anything, but I am truly sorry for what I did. I hurt you and I hurt myself. I made a terrible mistake." I looked at her, searching her eyes for any sign of insincerity, but all I saw was regret, genuine, heartfelt regret. "I know," I said softly. "I know you are." And then I did something I never thought I would do. I forgave her, not for her sake, but for mine. I realized that holding on to the anger and resentment was only hurting me. It was time to let go. I smiled, a genuine smile this time, and said, "Take care, Bronte." She smiled back, a sad, wistful smile, and said, "You too, Alaric." And then I turned and walked away, leaving her behind. I didn't look back. I knew that our paths would never cross again. But I also knew that I was finally free. Free from the pain, free from the anger, free from the past. I had survived Bronte's betrayal and I had emerged stronger, wiser, and more resilient. And that, I realized, was the ultimate revenge.